Welcome to On a Journey. I'm Paul Prado, and here we are again at the MacLean Ranch in Highland, California. And I have one of the proprietors with me, Charles Keel. Hi Charles, how's it going?
Great, Paul, thank you.
All right, so we've got this beautiful grove. Last week we ventured on here and saw some great stuff. Tell me about the origins of this ranch, or is it a grove?
Well, it's a grove, but we call it the MacLean Ranch. And we have two parts. The first part was bought by my great-grandparents in 1892.
1892.
And they came out here to East Highlands at that time with their 19-year-old son, bought the property over on what we call the West Place. We're currently on the East Place. They bought that property and farmed that for quite a few years. And then in the late 1800s up to 1925, they pieced together this place, which was 3 different parcels that my grandfather bought as his grove. And so he finished purchasing this block in 1925.
Wow. And so your mother pretty much ran the groves at one point.
After my grandfather passed away in the early 1950s, my grandmother and my mother took over operation of the groves.
What's your mom's name?
Elizabeth MacLean Keel.
Elizabeth MacLean Keel. And your grandma?
Ellen Morris MacLean.
All right. So here we have the matriarchs of these parcels that ran this grove or ranch that's still functioning today.
Yep.
You're still using equipment, old equipment, modern equipment to make this grove functioning. Here at the MacLean Ranch, you'll see this wall of rock. Back in the early 1900s, late 1800s, these parcels were bought for orange groves. You can see it's well fortified, and again, like some of the equipment that we saw in our first video, it's withstood the test of time. It comes all along down here, and instead of throwing the rocks away, we might as well use them and put them on this wall to prevent erosion. So now you've got this nice wall that's been here forever, and these beautiful groves that are being sustained by this man-made rock wall built by hand. Look at this heavy-duty chain links with this eye hook or ring in it. It's a ring, and it's a rock boat or a skid. This skid was used to haul huge rocks out of the groves, the MacLean Ranch here in Highland, California, in the late 1800s, maybe before that, but definitely late 1800s, early 1900s. And when this originated, it was a sloped terrain. It just went down, and that wasn't efficient for getting the groves in order. So they terraced it, building these walls of rocks, huge rocks you just saw of all shapes and sizes to retain the walls and give it a terraced look, which is now still here today in 2018. This thing is about 5 feet wide and about 10 feet long, and you can't get a good glimpse of the whole thing, but you could see from this plate and the eye hooks here and these heavy duty links that this thing was used extensively to get the huge rocks out of here to get this grove going. Here we have another contraption on the MacLean farm. It's called a disc. You might say discer, a disc. It's got 2, 4, 6, 7 discs. 2, 4, 6, 7 discs there, and it's like 6 discs over here. They're concave in 2 directions. One is inward, one is outward. This device was used for weed abatement. The front end would churn the earth one way, and as the back set came through, it would churn the earth the other way. This way, it's more efficient to get the weeds out of the ground, to get rid of the weeds in the grove. We talked about this nondescript pipe before. This was dragged behind the disc to level out the ground as the earth was churning. And this thing is pretty heavy. iron. You can feel it. My God, I'm getting a workout this morning. It's coupled and it's got chain links on that side, and this would go to the other end where it's tied, and as the device is pulled along the field, it's disking, and this is leveling. And if you notice about this one, it's got rubber tires. So this is more circa 1950. We saw other devices, late 1800s, 1920s. Now we're back to modern equipment to make it again more efficient to keep the grove working. More steel and iron equipment. What are these, Charles?
These are parts of a charcoal briquette smudge pot that was used before the oil burning smudge pots that are common still today. These cylinders had the base in it that you're holding one of the bases. The base was down on the bottom. They're all perforated so it gives ventilation. In it, it was layered with kindling to start the charcoals. It had wood, kindling, and layers of charcoal and kindling to get it burning. It was stacked in the smudge pot, stacked up in it. This is the lid for it that went on top to protect it from the elements and rain and stuff when it wasn't being used. And it had this device that you could set it on this to be able to store it when it was actually being burned. And it would be lit and flames coming up out it, putting heat and the smudges smoke that help create a inversion layer, or kind of like a layer of clouds to keep the warmth in.
So this smudge pot, as you can see here, and what he's holding, these are different from the smudge pots with the smokestack pot-bellied smudge pots that were atypical of the region of Redlands and Highland and San Bernardino. And here's a smaller version. As you can see, it's cylindrical, like he said. What I really like about it is this little lid holder, and it says Bowers Manufacturing Company, L.A., California. Made in California. Can you get that? Sweet. One more great device that was used on the grove, on the ranch, on the farm to keep this place humming. Look at this, a plow from the late 1800s. You could tell if you kind of zoom in right there, and you could see that it was horse drawn. This blade down here, again, like the other plows and the discs and the other things that churned up, it's got an arrow-shaped tip that's kind of curved. It might have had a tip, but right now it's kind of curved. It looks like it's an original shape. And what this did is it churned up the earth. And what I was told, that on the MacLean Ranch, these things could be used to churn up the earth so they could move that topsoil and move it someplace else. It was also used to remove weeds. But as you can see here we are in 2018, and this thing is intact. It's got the change direction. You can yee and haw with your horse and move it. Look at that. Do we see these nowadays? I don't think so. But this is how the citrus industry managed just to sustain itself with equipment like this. Wow, what do we have here, Charles?
This is a cedar for putting in row crops. The story goes that they did plant things like celery in between the rows of trees when the trees were not in production, when they were young and starting to grow and get up to size and produce a commercial crop. They used the land for things like celery and other vegetables or row crops. So this was a horse-drawn cedar. They put the seeds in this container here. They have these round plates or discs that are underneath with different size holes in it.
Wow.
To let the different seeds drop through the holes to be able to disperse them down the row. There's a little blade on this part that would open up the dirt, and then the seeds would drop down through these rings and then covered back up by this wheel. You see the wheel is concaved, so it would kind of form the dirt around the mound and cover the seeds back up and compact it into the dirt.
That's amazing. A concave smoother. This says DX12, DX13, and look at the small diameter of this one, DX17. It's amazing. No technology, iron and steel. You've got your blade at the bottom, your dispenser, and a smoother all in one. And you've got it chain driven.
There's a chain on the other side.
On this side of the device, and the apparatus, the equipment here, it's chain driven.
The wheel would turn and turn these round things underneath here so
And they
the
would-
seed drop through.
And they would spin. So you've got a little modern technology being chain driven, but it's pulled by a horse. And you've got your person back here directing the way down the line in the grove. Celery in Highland. Sweet. Stay tuned next week to learn more about the MacLean Ranch and Grove in Highland, California. Go on a journey with Paul Prado Photography.